slides will work at some point.
That was my fault. I had a whole job that I was supposed to press that so that he had walk-on music. And I was warned, then Sam's going to press it, and then the walk-on music's going to come on, and I've done it.
Is this walk-on music?
Yeah. I chose myself. And it's going to be a big present for you. You're welcome.
Now I feel better. Hi, I'm Sam. Thanks for coming, guys. I'm going to spend about 30 minutes, invite some guests on stage, and hopefully set the agenda for what we're going to talk about this afternoon. Talk a little bit about why we're here, and again, not talk about products, and not talk about features, and not talk about individual experiences, but talk about how do we think about the customer experience in some new and interesting ways. As some people know, I have a habit of embarrassing myself, so I'm going to do that right now. This is a picture of me from a couple years ago, and this is a picture of me from 1973. I'm the one on the right, but I want to point out that that's before those mustaches were ironic. Which is a bummer. The second thing is my dad did not save that outfit for me, so you don't have to wear it. But I want to think about a little bit about the customer experience, and if you know Zendesk, we don't take ourselves too seriously because we all have really hard jobs, and talking to customers every day and dealing with their issues and stuff is challenging. So what I want to talk about today, to begin with, is a little bit about loyalty. Right? This is, I think, what we all want to achieve, is how do we get to an experience where people are carving our logos in their back, and how do we have these incredibly loyal customers, right? How do we get people to care so much about our brand and care so much about our experience that they'll do things like this, right? And the question we all struggle with is how do we actually do that? That's actually a really challenging thing to do, right? Do we be super cool and hipster and spend billions of dollars like Apple does? Do we do the Zappos thing where they send pizzas, or how do we actually do that? So instead of sort of having an opinion on that, we're going to actually look towards a little bit of research, and I'm going to take a little bit of excerpts from two sources. The one on the left is the Zendesk benchmark. For those of you who don't know, we introduced the Zendesk benchmark a couple of years ago. We're in a fortunate position where a lot of our customers share their individual data they anonymize it with, so we have tens of millions of support interactions a month that we can start to make some conclusions with. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and I want to talk about this book, The Effortless Experience, because this is the corporate executive board, and they've done some really interesting research on what are consumer expectations really. So I'm going to sort of go back and forth a little bit for a few minutes on that. This first chart is probably the biggest sort of insight that the corporate executive board came with the effortless experience, which is this concept of delight. It just doesn't work the way that people think it is. And what you see here is the perception is if I can exceed the customer expectation, I will drive more loyalty. But the data finds, and the data in their case was interviews with 90-something thousand people. Their data shows that it doesn't actually come true in reality. In reality, that there's not a lot of incremental benefit and loyalty from exceeding customer expectations. And that's mind-blowing in this world of where we're supposed to delight the customer and we're supposed to deliver this incredible thing. That's a really profound sort of concept, especially when you think of the fact that it's backed with lots and lots of data. So really, think about it. Customer loyalty is not something that comes for free. You can't buy it with a sort of loyalty program or something. And if you look at the people that wind up flying first class on points, they're not the nicest people in the world, right? Sorry, other than Nickel, of course. They're not the nicest people in the world. So you kind of wonder. So what is loyalty? It's customers really have to love your product. They have to really enjoy dealing with you, and they must relate to your brand in a real and meaningful way, right? So what you need to do, and what we all need to do, is build that relationship with customers, one interaction at a time, and think about what the expectations are. So, what does that mean? Here's a piece of research with really small font size, so you can't read it at all. But this is a survey data that we did, which is what makes a customer service interaction good. And I have to squint myself, but basically the number one thing that drives a good customer experience through support is the problem was resolved quickly, right? That's the most important thing. That's what customers want. They want a low effort experience. There's other things. The person was nice. The problem was resolved in one interaction. We'll get to that in a minute. The outcome is what I originally was hoping for. So you get the idea. It's not like I was delighted they gave me a free Panda or something like that. It was quick resolution, right? And if you look at the data, this is from the Zendesk benchmark. It's a really pretty chart, but it shows a really direct correlation. On one axis, you have customer satisfaction score, and the other axis, you have minutes to first response, right? So the response time actually matters, right? You can tell it's a fancy chart with lots of points and things like that, and it's probably like a derivative or something. So you can see a direct relationship between how quickly you respond to a customer need and how happy they're going to be ultimately. But fast isn't necessarily enough. The other thing that we've done is we've actually looked at, we've done some linguistic analysis with the benchmark. Again, we have millions of interactions, and we look at all the content in the data. And this is interesting because this talks to effort, right? And what this is if it's hard to read, you've got 3 words. You've got sorry, please, and thank you, right? And guess what? The more times you say sorry, that's the dark one, the lower the satisfaction is. So if you continue to be nice to your customers and not solve their problem, they're gonna like you less and less and less. The more effort you put into it, the more you're like, I'm sorry we didn't fix that, but let me try. I'm sorry we didn't fix that, I tried. They don't like that, right? And that speaks a lot to customer effort. And I'm gonna jump back to the effortless experience. And this is, I like this slide so much that I actually took a picture of it from the book because I couldn't find a good version of it. That's how much I love this stuff, right? But what you see here is something that's really profound, which is the potential positive and negative impact of loyalty that support and service can have. And on the left here, you have basically, the more loyal, the best thing you can do in service is drive a little bit of loyalty. What they say that, again, this moments of wow, what they call, but it's not, sending somebody a pizza or, upgrading somebody to first class. It's teaching you something new, right? So if in the service experience, you're educating your customer about something they didn't know, that's an opportunity that will drive loyalty. But for every 1 unit of driving loyalty in service, you are driving sort of 3 units of hitting loyalty, right? Of having disloyalty, which is really bad. And you can see here, the big chunk of that is, more than 1 contact to resolve a particular issue. And then some of the things I think that we're all familiar with personally, generic service, repeating information, having to re-enter my credit card number, perceived additional effort to resolve transfers, things along those lines. You see that that's actually a really big problem. So what does that actually mean? What that means, it's sad, is that the more work I do to solve my problem, the more I despise you, right? So I don't like it. If I have to work to solve my problem, you should be helping me do that, right? And that's something that's really different from sort of our nature. We want to help people, right? So the question is, how do we move from helping people to giving them a better experience? I think that's what we're going to try to talk about. We see this in our data as well. Again, this is from the Zendesk benchmark, and here what we have is the correlation between customer satisfaction ratings, which is a transactional measure at the end of a support interaction. Were you satisfied or not from a particular support interaction, and then Net Promoter Score. If you're not familiar with Net Promoter Score is a measure of loyalty and willingness to recommend. And you don't do it at the end of a survey. You don't do it at the end of a support ticket. You do it you survey your whole customer base. And the point here is if you look at what are the really big green lines and the really big red lines, right? The first one is for people who have given a good satisfaction survey in the past. Customers that have had a good experience, again, probably an effortless experience, probably something that did not get in their way. There is a greater than 50% chance that they're a promoter of your brand, right? However, if they had a bad experience, if you took too long, if you said I'm sorry too many times, there is a greater than 60% chance that they're a detractor to your brand, right? So you kind of see is like, we really all want to be figuring out ways that we can deliver great customer experiences, but that's really hard because it seems like the more that we do, the worse it gets, right? So it's a really big and interesting challenge we have to face, which is I think what we're going to try to talk about this afternoon. So, great, I get it, that sounds great, kind of weird data, Freakonomics, what do I do about that, right? So, one thing I did about this was I flew down to a really beautiful place. This is a picture of me on a plane. I did not take this because the propeller was broken and going to die. See that weird thing? That happens when you take a picture of a propeller with an iPhone, by the way. Anybody know where that is? That beautiful place? it's a really random picture. It's San Luis Obispo, and I was visiting a company called Mindbody. And Mindbody Online is a Zendesk customer, and we learned a lot from Mindbody and Annie, who I'm going to invite up in a second, about how do we think about the effortless experience. So I wanted to invite Annie Wu, who's here somewhere, to come up and join me on stage. Here she is, and talk to her for a couple minutes. So thanks, Annie. So the first thing I want to say about Annie is that when we visited her, first of all, it's beautiful down there. I know why you live there. But the one thing I remember when we went down there is that we had lunch, and she was telling me about this book. And this was about 6 or 8 months ago. And sorry, Michael, this is another book. But we were really talking about this book, and it was amazing to hear the passion you had for it. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But first, can you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Mindbody?
Sure. Well, my name is Annie Wu. I'm the Vice President of Customer Service with Mindbody. Some people know me more commonly as the Customer Love Goddess, which I absolutely, it's on my business card. But Mindbody, we were a garage business, and I joined the company about 9 years ago with 30 employees, and my salary was whatever I could live on, which was probably $10 an hour at that time. And our core product, which you see up here behind me, is business management software for the health and beauty markets. And today, it's not only that, but it's a network of corporate wellness and consumers. So the value for our product is making it easy for those businesses to have customers come to the door. I'm curious, has anyone used the Mindbody Connect app at all? Yeah, I saw a hand. A couple people, awesome. So, it's, if you're into yoga, if you're at the gym, if you're looking for spa treatments or massage, you can download the free Mindbody Connect app, and it will connect you to a business. So we're sort of the Uber of the wellness industry.
Excellent. So before we get started, you can't just casually mention that your business card says Customer Love Goddess and not talk about, did you reach a tenure in the company where you could not get fired, where you could do that, or is that just the culture of Mindbody?
In part, it's the culture of Mindbody. It wasn't a title I came up with myself, or CEO gave me the title. And it really just speaks to my passion for serving people. And I truly believe that leadership isn't about wielding power, but really loving those who are supporting the organization. So, for me, it starts first with our employees and empowering them and showing that they're trusted, and that trickles all the way through to the customer. So I think that's really where it came from.
Got it. So let's talk about this book a little bit, because you mentioned it almost casually. You said, hey, we were with another Zendesk employee, and hey, you should really read this book, and the two of us went and read it, and it was totally addictive. What do you think it is about this particular book? Because there's a million books on the bookshelves about customer experience and customer support and stuff. What do you think it is about the effortless experience that resonates so much?
I think a lot of organizations feel like customer service is their brand, but hadn't been really able to pinpoint that in any way that was analytical. And the book really shows how much power it is in the hands of your agents, of those people who are running the service part of the organization. But in a way that's very simple. I mean, they break down effort and loyalty in a very simple way, which is how you make customers feel and the steps that you make them go through to interact with your business. So for me, that was what was just mind-blowing was, this is easy. I mean, doing it isn't easy, but the concepts themselves are actually pretty simple.
So let's talk about how hard it is to do the easy stuff. So what was it like as somebody who saw the light in a company that was probably a couple hundred people when you read the book, or maybe more? What was it like trying to introduce this into your company and maybe change the mindset or align people around a concept like this?
The challenge with running a customer service organization is that you measure everything. And so in that sense, it starts to become a cost center, and you're looked at more of how much are you costing the company, what's the cost of revenue, how much are you taking away from the revenue that you're bringing in, and less on what's the value that you're providing the organization. And so we really had to, for us, rethink how we were communicating our value to the organization. And so we took a long look at our metrics and started communicating differently, showing these initiatives that we're taking are actually impacting attrition. We're tracking it up, we're tracking it down. That adds to the lifetime value of our customer. That increases our average revenue. That improves our recurring gross margin. So we really just got skilled at communicating at that level with the rest of the organization in terms that matter to them. And that created the buy-in for everything that we're doing.
So did people, was that just support, okay, support's going to do different things now, or did you figure out a way to get the rest of the company involved actively?
Yeah, we formed a task force internally called the Customer Experience Task Force. We had sort of a sister to it of the user experience side that was very heavily focused on the product and the client's interaction with the product itself, but it didn't really look at the service portion of it. So I formed a task force called Customer Experience, and I pulled in members from every department, and we sat down, and it just really old school, just sticky notes and a whiteboard mapped out what our customer journey is, all the different touch points that we were having on the service side.
Yeah, we see a lot of that. We do that with customers, and we see customers doing that themselves, and very much this exercise of mapping the customer journey and forcing employees to experience the customer journey is a really big thing as well. So was it an immediate success? Did you just put a bunch of sticky notes and everything got better, or like?
The first time we did it, it led to a complete innovation of how we onboarded our customers, which was great, and then it sort of petered out. I got really busy, and we were growing our contact center from California to include also New York and the UK. So at that point, our CEO recommended, hey, why don't you hand us off marketing? And I was like, okay.
I'm in marketing, so you can make fun of marketing.
Okay,
I won't do that.
So marketing's idea of the Customer Experience Task Force was to send swag to our customers. So it was basically what Sam was showing was the delight strategy. And for some reason, I don't know why marketing people do this way, but maybe you can explain to me. Sending a box with a balloon and coupons and a reusable grocery bag is make our customers more loyal. I don't know, but it didn't work. We wasted thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and workforce just compiling boxes and sending them out. And it was a big flop, and we had to bring it back and start over again.
Yeah, it's a lot of that's the Zappos effect and the sort of the Nordstrom effect, where we all feel like we want to be treated royally and have these moments of delight and things. And I can understand why that would happen. I would never do something like that, send things out or give books out to people or anything like that. So that's completely nothing to do. But you're able to get it back on track now. And
yes.
What was the thing that you feel like happened at Mindbody where people sort of got it and sort of started to focus on the customer experience a little bit more?
We started seeing an upward trend in return, and that really freaked a lot of people out. I mean, when you're in the SaaS business, it's all about your recurring gross margin and how long you can hold on to customers and how much of the revenue you can hold on to. And we just started seeing some trends we didn't like, and it scared a lot of us. And the CEO came back and said, hey, whatever happened to this task force? We need to get back on this. And so we formed together again, a little bit differently, where it's primarily a group of executives and department heads to focus on the strategy of where we're going as a company, and then we reached down throughout to implement the different initiatives that we're working on.
So fear, great motivator.
Fear is a good motivator.
Right.
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm just joking. So I guess the last thing I'd ask you is a lot of companies here are earlier along the journey as Mindbody. What would be the one thing you'd recommend folks to do go back to our companies and start the journey or make the next step in it?
It can be really overwhelming when you're looking at the customer journey and mapping everything out and just seeing all the pitfalls, and you can feel really down and oh my gosh, we have so much to do. But I think the best thing is just to pick one area that is really impactful to the customer experience and fix that and just chip away at it. And those little wins add up so fast. So I guess that's my advice, is just pick something and fix it and keep moving forward.
Excellent, that's great advice. Annie, thanks. We're going to hear from Annie a little bit later on a panel, but I appreciate your coming up and talking. So thank you. I want to spend a little bit of time changing gears a little bit and earning my salary and talking a little bit about Zendesk just for a couple minutes before we move on. We had a launch yesterday, which is directly related to some of the experiences from talking with companies like Mindbody and looking at some of our more innovative companies about how they're putting support directly into the customer experience around really reducing that customer effort. So you might recognize the voice in this video that I'm about to show, but it'll sort of paint the picture a little bit on what we're talking about.
Crystals. For ages, their magic has been known only to wizards. No one has ever dared use that power for business software. Until now. These are Zendesk embeddables, and they have a crystal-like magic that embeds your Zendesk Help Center, tickets, and chat natively into any website, smart device, or mobile app. Embeddables allow businesses to put help right at their customers' fingertips, keeping more customers in the native app or product experience. So gamers can keep gaming, shoppers can keep shopping, and wizards can keep doing whatever they do with crystals. Zendesk Embeddables. Bring customer service directly to your customers.
So that's something that we released yesterday. We love crystals here. But what we're talking about here is exactly what we said, which is how do we actually bring the elements of customer service, whether you're reaching out for issuing a support ticket or searching content in order to do a self-service, or actually interacting live through chat. How do you bring that into your mobile apps? How do you bring that into your web experiences natively, which is essentially what we released yesterday. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. I want to invite somebody else here to give you the dangerous and risky live demo of embeddables in action. So the easiest way to understand this is to see this. So this example is a company called Trax Family. They make GPS trackers for kids and dogs. We haven't confirmed it yet, but we're pretty sure the dog version is more expensive. I have kids, and I spend less on my kids than people spend on their dogs. But you see here, the experience is, it's just a little web widget that you've interacted with a million times. What's unique about it is I can go and search knowledge and see what I want, and then interact with the company. In this particular case, it's ticket deflection, so it's looking for knowledge in the FAQ. And then submitting a ticket for an answer. What's different about this, and I'll replay it, never go back in a keynote, by the way. I'll replay it again. What you see here is that I don't actually leave the page, right? So if I'm actually on the shopping cart, and I'm actually buying one of these things, I'm not gonna have to leave the shopping cart in order to do this. If I'm playing a game, I'm not gonna have to leave the game to do it. So this concept, this widget, which does what you want it to do without actually having to leave the experience, is really important. So that's the web version of it. Now I want to talk about the native version of it, and I'm going to talk about a game called Crime City. This is not Oakland, California, after the Ferguson riots. I'm an Oakland resident, so I can say that. But it is a fictitious game called Crime City. It's made by GREE International, and Chris Tabasa is going to come up here and talk to me about it for a minute. I think we will. We'll spend a couple minutes just talking about GREE and Crime City, and then we'll risk it all and do a live demo, which will not work. So, see that way, if it works, people will be so happy and surprised that we do nothing but delay their experience. So, tell me a little bit about GREE, and tell me about the company.
Awesome. So, my name is Chris Bus. I'm the director of customer operations there, and now we're going to go back to the office and ask if I can be named the consumer goddess.
San Francisco, it's all possible.
Yes. So we're in the free-to-play market, which is basically mobile games on iOS devices and Android devices. It's a very competitive market because there's thousands and hundreds, if not thousands, of games out there, and everyone can just download a free game. And something like 90-95% of our players aren't paying customers who make revenue on 5-10% of our players. So it's a very important kind of strategy for us to actually be really in touch with our players. So we have about 9 games out of our San Francisco office that are on the app stores and the top 100 grossing. We've done a pretty good job of making sure that the experience in the game is actually an experience that we actually offer them for support to as well.
So this is a weird question, but like gaming forever, I never contacted my game. I didn't call Milton Bradley when Monopoly didn't work when I was growing up and say, hey, like how do I get Boardwalk or whatever? Like communicating with players who are playing your games?
Yeah, so one thing that's very important to us is that when somebody's actually playing one of our games, especially in competitive free-to-play market, that they are always playing our games, and that one, that they never leave our game. So the two metrics that we use, or buzzwords that we use quite a bit, is retention and engagement, and we make sure that our players have the opportunity to are always playing our games and actually never have to leave. But it's very interesting. I think you've used this example before, that we'll periodically get an email with the subject line, "Give me back my tracking," in all capital letters, and I'm sure that's not a common email that you can see in other customer service organizations.
There are often expletives in that email too.
Yeah. I was gonna say them, but keep it PG.
Yeah, we never curse at these events.
Yeah, and most of the words actually curse words in our emails. But gamers are really passionate customers.
Yeah, so tell me about the idea of embeddables, and like how do you get to the point where you're actually thinking about embedding this directly into the game?
So one of the things that when we first started, we didn't have anything embedded, and whenever you get an email from a customer, the question is, I need more information from you, and then that actually creates a little bit more frustration. The effortless experience requires more effort, right? So one of the things that we wanted to do was actually have that information passed directly to us, so that when we look at our players, or when we start to interact, and when we begin to interact, we know exactly who they are. And that's after they have the issue, and that's after they decide that they want to contact us. Before that, we also want to use for ticket deflection. We want to make sure that our FAQs, our self-support tools are really good.
So there's a benefit, we're going to see in a second, there's a benefit not just for me playing Crime City because I can get back to shooting people, but also for you, because when I send you a ticket, you know more about me.
Absolutely. So you reduce the ticket communication, at least reply by one, right? And not only that, you actually reduce the opportunity for error. So let's just say that we have a very proactive customer, they manually enter in some information, but it's not always accurate, so you still have to ask, and that actually frustrates the players more because they gave you the information, but it happens to not be in the way that you need.
And what happens if they're frustrated?
They curse at us.
Yeah, and what happens if they leave your game and go try another
exactly. So again, retention and engagement is really important to us, and making sure that, again, in the free-to-play market, there's dozens of crime type games, or war type games, or dragon type games, and they just go straight to the App Store and download another game. So it's important to us that we give them a seamless experience and that they're allowed to stay in the game.
And that's the amazing thing about the gaming world, is that it never used to be that once I spent my $50 or $100 on a console game or a PC game, I just had it, and then you were done making money off of me until the next year. But this way, you actually make money through engagement, so you're motivated to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to convert. So I said 5 to 10% of your players are actually paying customers, and you obviously want to make sure that you keep those players around first of all, but also convert other players from non-spenders to spenders.
Cool. Should we take a look?
Let's take a look.
Let's go do it. As I said, this will not work. Now I've proven everybody won't work. So let's just see. Move over here, and there it is. This is a live iPad. By the way, now you're. Chris, what is that app that you have on your lower end? Is that the Zendesk agent app?
Yeah, that's actually not even intentional. That's always there.
Oh yeah, really? I recommend you use that. So what are we looking at here?
All right, so the game's Crime City. Pull it up. It's just loading time.
You can blame our Wi-Fi if you want.
No, I was just going to say, this looks like I have to go back to engineering and tell them that
Right.
this is not an effortless environment.
You can always blame somebody else for the problem. That's the lesson that I learned. So, and now we're.
So now we're in the game. And then let's say someone has had an issue. So then they go to this menu section here, and then there's help. So in our scenario, what we've done actually is we have the FAQs readily available in terms of surveys, and we have a link to our forums. But they actually also mentioned that our FAQs, in the past, they were actually, if we needed to edit them, we would have to actually justify it with a frequently asked question, and we would give it to product and design, they would verify it, and then somebody would actually have to go to the file and update that. We've actually integrated so that it actually automatically works with Zendesk. So an agent who is actually getting a frequently asked question can update that in Zendesk, and then it pulls automatically onto our help section immediately.
That must make developers happier if they don't have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the real-time reaction is better, by far a lot better too. So it's part of the ticket collection.
And it doesn't look like Zendesk, it looks like Crime City.
Exactly. Yep.
Not that I don't like the way Zendesk looks, but.
So it's say a player has an issue. You click contact support. Help. and then they click post. So this is all the Zendesk SDK. Sends, and then the nice thing here is, like in the past, when somebody actually sends us an email, then it takes them out of the game, then they're communicating to us via email. Now with the Zendesk SDK, all that history is here. They actually never leave the game. So again, creating the opportunity for retention and engagement, it doesn't pull them away when we service them if they're upset. They're actually here already. And then they can actually go into the issue, look at the issue. So remember earlier I mentioned that perhaps they give us account information. In the past, the player could actually edit this information as it was sent to us. What the Zendesk SDK does is actually prevents that from happening. So that way the player can't manually edit this information and kind of change our workflow or our process.
So I noticed you didn't have to actually have a long form of like, who are you, what game are you playing, what device do you want, and things like that. So not only do you prevent customers giving you the wrong information, but you've actually eliminated the effort they have to, reduce the effort they have to do that.
Right.
So.
And this information tells us exactly who they are, how much they spend with us, how long they've been with us, what kind of device that they're using.
So how much are you spending on your own game?
Yeah, so we get all that information, and the agent replies back, and then it's all within the game, which is a big.
Excellent. Excellent. What was the experience like putting this in?
It was fantastic. The team that we worked with was actually fantastic. And our engineers were actually really excited about doing this. So in terms of like opportunity costs, instead of having our engineers invest time in designing customer workflows and having this SDK actually improves like time to actually implement new features and things like that, and improves our customer workflow. So our engineers can then just focus on revenue generating.
Right. Excellent. Happy engineers make happy products.
Exactly.
So, hey, Chris, thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate it.